Welcome to Distributions Are Dead, Long Live Distributions, a Drupal CMS story.
I think a lot of you know who we are, but just in case you don't, I'm Adam. I am the architecture lead of Drupal CMS. I work for Acquia as a staff software engineer.
And I'm Tim, and I work as the senior engineering manager at Acquia, and I'm the technical lead of Drupal CMS.
So co-tech leads of Drupal CMS, basically. This is a story in 2 acts, which is to say, first I want to just give kind of a high-level technical overview of what we did building Drupal CMS, how we approached building it, kind of how the parts fit together. And then part 2 is how you can use what we did and what you can take away from that, what you can learn from our approach. Should you also be building distribution-shaped objects? I shouldn't say distributions anymore because they're dead. Anyway, what we did is we did not build a traditional distribution. That was never going to work. The main reason is that, okay, just let me quickly check. How many people here have used a distribution in some form? Everybody. Many of you, this is one I really want to know though. How many of you have had a negative experience with a distribution in some form?
That's everybody.
Yeah, that's because they suck, honestly.
How many of them were because of lightning?
Could we not? Okay, that's a minority. That's
hey, that was for the recording. That was less than 10% of the audience, so it's not all your fault.
I was gonna say I maintained a distribution once. That's true. I was gonna say I maintained a distribution once also, and I tried to do a good job of it, and it was really, really, really hard because they're inflexible. They make all the decisions for you at install time, and then they sit around forever having opinions. You can't really get rid of them. It's only recently that Core even allowed you to uninstall profile. Dependencies were hard. We had to really micromanage a lot of them, in Lightning in particular, and I think other distributions have had maybe similar needs. And the real worst thing about them is that they are freaking impossible to properly write updates for. I mean, I'm sure they're possible, but like you've got to try, and you got to be lucky. And I tried really hard, and sometimes I was lucky, and sometimes I was really unlucky. And all that sucks. And we didn't want any of that for Drupal CMS. We needed to be useful. We needed it to be good. We needed it to be mix and matchable. We needed it to be composable. And we needed to not have to worry about updating the damn thing forever while you're going and building sites with it. So what did we build? 2 things. I like to think of it as a bunch of recipes walking around in a trench coat, because that's kind of what it is. Most of Drupal CMS, 99% of it, as somebody else said in a session, 99% of it is recipes. And those recipes are doing useful things. They're setting up content types, setting up media types, installing certain modules, some of which you'll use on most sites, some of which are kind of more optional. And all of these recipes are available separately. You do not need to start a site with Drupal CMS to use the parts, to take advantage of the things that we built. You can use it on any site that you make. And they're related to each other. They depend on each other when they need to. Because recipes are like that. Recipes are composable. They can build on each other. So parts of Drupal CMS do that too. That's one part of what Drupal CMS is. The other part is a prototypical site template. There's been a lot of talk at this DrupalCon about site templates and what they are. If Drupal CMS is a bunch of recipes wandering around in a trench coat, the site template is the trench coat that just holds them together, says these are the recipes I want to start with, this is how we're going to lay them out in the file system. Core's Drupal recommended project is kind of an example. You call composer create project with it, and it sets up a code base for you. That's basically the site template. Having said that, that's evolving. Pam's giving me a look, a little bit.
That's just her face. It's fine.
I thought it was a look. And so, it's probable that, site templates as they evolve will provide more things, but right now, it's kind of the basics. These are the recipes I need. These are the modules I want. This is how to lay them out. Is this still my slide? Or
you stole my slides. I can do yours though if you want.
Take it, take it.
So we really actually you also said most of this stuff too. The real thing that sets everything apart, in addition to the installer and the recipes, is the default content, and allowing us to dictate exactly what modules. in a distribution, normally you have a whole list of modules, you have all the patches you might use and everything. We don't list out every module we use, we list out all the recipes, and each of those recipes chooses which modules to use. Some of them are shared, like the base content type one uses path auto, because every site needs path auto. But the other aspect of it is this demo content. And you've heard Dries use the term relevant demo content. And that's where this gets tricky, because not all demo content is relevant. And with Drupal CMS, it's really hard to decide what is relevant, because Drupal CMS is such a starting point for things. And it's infinitely more opinionated than Drupal core ever was, but it's still just not far enough. And the main thing that Drupal CMS really doesn't do is, we have the Olivero subtheme, which, was sort of a standalone, or a stand-in until we have Experience Builder to let us, sort of, yeah, thank you. It's a shim to be able to style things like the events recipe, the blog recipe, to make them look more like Olivero, even though those only exist in Drupal CMS. They don't exist in core. So that's how we went about that. Yeah, this is back to you.
Okay, yeah. So recipes are our main tool with Drupal CMS. The other one is Composer. I don't think this is really all that controversial, but if you're building a distribution, building a site, building projects, if you're developing them, I think as an end user, you shouldn't have to look at Composer. It's not the most approachable program in the world. But if you're building something like it, or building something like this, you got to get comfy with Composer. It does all the work. We say this is basically what we want, and we let it handle the details. We don't pin any dependencies. We don't say, well, we need exactly version 1.0.3 of this. We just let Composer, we give Composer guidelines, let it figure it out. That lets sites keep themselves up to date, lets sites keep themselves secure, and make sure everything is compatible with everything else. So Composer is one of our most critical tools. I think it's kind of true for basically everybody at this point, but there's still a lot of discomfort around Composer, which I don't blame you for, but if you're building a distro, something like it, get comfortable with that. And Drupal CMS took really heavy advantage of DDEV. This was a very, very big community-driven project. Lots of contributors from all different kinds of places, all different, a lot of different experience levels, and trying to just let people contribute to Drupal CMS, or really ask people. You can do what you want, but if we were asking people to contribute to Drupal CMS using whatever setup they have, that was just going to be a nightmare, and all kinds of weird stuff could happen. So we standardized on DDEV, and we have said, this is the platform that Drupal endorses for development. If you want to develop Drupal CMS, not use Drupal CMS, but develop it, got to use DDEV. It's a good choice. It's really good. And then one of the things that confuses, I think, some people when they look at the repository for Drupal CMS is like, where is everything? I don't get this. Where are the recipes at? Where's this at? Where's that? We built everything in a single repository. This pattern is called a monorepo. And the idea is that there's 20 recipes in Drupal CMS. If they were all separate projects, and every time I made a change over in the events recipe and it has some minor effect over in the blog recipe, I have to coordinate between those two things. That would be an absolute nightmare. I have done that with only 5 projects, and it was horrible. So build it all in one place. We can use automation. There's a thing called a subtree split, which is like a Git feature that lets you kind of automatically say, this little piece of this repo, let's just copy it into its own repo and push that automatically as its own thing. And we take advantage of this. So that's why when people clone the Drupal CMS repository, they're getting the whole thing. They're getting all parts of Drupal CMS right there in kind of just a developer-centric layout. And this pattern is used by Symfony. It's used by Core, actually, for some small parts of Core. It's fairly common for large projects like this. And so that's how we did it. And those are kind of the 4 things, the main things, about how we put Drupal CMS together. It's a bunch of recipes split out into their own projects automatically by a subtree split, tied back together with Composer, developed using DDEV. It's kind of it. Most of the action is in recipes. So, do you want to?
Next slide.
Next slide, okay. So, in case it's not obvious right now, I really like recipes. You should use them. You should use them for almost everything if you're building something like this. They let you do like most of the site building tasks that you need to do, they can do. And they can do it much faster than you. And the fact that you can have recipes be relatively small and require each other, build on each other, and sort of build up together without needing everything to be a giant monolith is amazing. I also love the fact that they have no life cycle anymore. Actually, that's risky. Let's not do that. You apply a recipe once, then it can go away. Site keeps operating, no problems. This is a sharp step away from traditional distributions where any customization you do generally has to come in the form of some bespoke module that you wrote that might just be a configuration package, but then comes with module baggage. It's not very fun. And that brings me to updating config, which is this is what really is so problematic in distributions. And recipes have no update path because they have no life cycle, no code. Updating config is a tricky problem. It's not a problem recipes really need to solve. That is a problem core needs to solve. And that's okay. It is okay to create recipes that are a starting point, that do a bunch of setup, and then go away and leave the rest to you. And also, about removing recipes, right? There is one wrinkle to this right now, which is if a recipe requires a bunch of modules into the site, and you have those modules installed, everything's operating nicely, and then you remove the recipe, Composer will blow away all the modules it requires as well, unless you directly require them. That's going to be fixed in core with something called the Unpack plugin, which we're working on for Drupal 11.2. But that's one place where this kind of is still iffy, but it's an experimental subsystem.
And the good news is, in between now and when that's fixed in core, recipes have no runtime code, so there is no detriment to having them on your site.
Yeah,
it's just there. It'd be nice to be able to clean it up and not have it sit around forever, but it's no practical problem right now.
Yeah, they just sit harmless. So the way to approach building recipes, I think it's a little bit tricky. Like figuring out how much should I put in this recipe? What should it do? Where are the boundaries? That's a thing you get by feel. The way I think you should approach it, if you say have an existing distribution that you start projects with, is take your install profile, just convert it into a recipe. Go ahead and make it a monolith, it's fine. Just get it working however you want, like however it can work. And then you can ship that. The recipe will be applied, it'll be a big recipe, but okay. And because they have no life cycle, later on if you want to split it out, if you start looking at the profile, the recipe that was a profile, and you start seeing smaller parts that would make sense on their own. Oh, this content type makes sense. This media type makes sense. This set of configuration kind of makes sense by itself. I'd like to use just this piece somewhere else. Split that out into its own recipe, and then have your bigger recipe require that recipe. You can just keep refactoring it like that. You can break it down into smaller pieces and share those pieces with the world. If you find it useful, somebody else will too. When you do that, I have two things I need to tell you. One, they're general projects on Drupal.org. They're not modules, they're not themes, so don't create them as modules or themes, or you will make Neil Drum sad. The other thing is, don't prefix them with Drupal CMS, please.
Please.
That will make me sad.
Please stop calling your things Drupal CMS _ your cool thing, because it's not.
No, your thing is cool.
Sorry,
your thing is cool.
Your thing is very, very cool, but it is not Drupal CMS.
It's all special. Yeah. But don't call them Drupal CMS.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world if you do. This has happened a couple of times, but it can make more work for us later on if we want to adopt that recipe.
We want your namespace.
Split one out.
Yeah, we'll come for your namespace.
We might. So let's just coexist with different namespaces. And use third-party recipes as well. Drupal CMS does this. There's the way we set up HTML email is with the Easy Email Express recipe. We didn't write that, someone else did, but we bring it in, we apply it. It's okay to depend on recipes. Let's build this ecosystem. Want to take this one?
Sure, why not? Yeah. So with install profiles, as Adam mentioned earlier, as of 10.3, they can now be uninstalled, and they should, in our opinion. But the main thing in the future to use an install profile for is only for adding steps to the install wizard, changing the way the installer looks. If you've seen the Drupal CMS, launcher installer, it looks very different than Core's, and it removes a lot of different things. It moves some around, it switches the order, and it rethemes it. But the main thing is that it should never, ever have any runtime code that you expect to continue beyond the installation. We have all these hooks. The installer, interacting with the installer is tricky. Drupal's installer has been around since Drupal 5?
Since the dinosaurs.
Well, it wasn't in Drupal 4, but either in Drupal 5, it's pretty inscrutable. And so in order to help anyone write their own to help customize an installing experience, Adam split out the recipe installer kit. And it surfaces the 5 or 6 main things you might want to do and gives you nice hooks for them. That said, write your own custom installer with some, you don't have to. You can use ours. You can use the regular recipe installer kit. You don't have to go completely wild and change every step of it. If you're at an organization that allows other people, more of a platform thing, like if you're higher ed, you might want your own installer. It's like, oh, this is the whatever school's web services team. You might want your own installer to put their branding on it. But you don't need to, completely reorganize every single step of the installer. But there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, and the recipe installer kit has good documentation, and Drupal CMS is already using it and is a good example of how to use it. So site templates. Yeah. This is the first time you've seen anything written down concretely about how site templates might be. This is from a document that we discussed as the Drupal CMS core team, and it's still very much in flux. And there might be some things on here that aren't going to be in it. There might be some things that we're going to add. But the main thing, obviously, to start with is a composer JSON file, because that's how you do everything these days. The custom install profile itself, as I said, you might not want a custom theme. You might not need to make any tweaks to it. You should have it planned to be self-uninstalled at the end. And as I said, if in doubt, use the recipe installer kit. But the main thing you can do there is, Adam was saying, finding the fine line between, do I have one massive recipe or 37 recipes, is, that is sort of like an art more than a science right now. But the other aspect of that is you can have required recipes that are required by your site template that are only split out into a granular way because you want to share them externally. But you can also have optional recipes, ones that you want to let your users choose during the install time. And that's the main thing you might do here is designate that these 6 different content types. I want to let you pick between them, and that's what's currently in Drupal CMS 1.1. The other thing, the theme, as we've talked about a lot this week, Experience Builder is going to change all of this. We went with a hacky sort of sub-theme of Olivero just to get stuff out the door, but Experience Builder and all the component stuff and the design systems are really going to change all of that. And the last is some starter and demo content. Not yet clear how this will work, how we're going to package it up. That comes with all the licensing discussions that we were having, and there's watch this space. There's no real decisions here yet. And yeah, this is to re-emphasize this again. Everything on the previous slide might change. I would bet will change. So yeah, we are sort of evolving all these best practices as we go. Things like the recipe installer kit are a great example of something we felt very confident about and sort of pulled out to share with the larger community and said, this is how you do this thing from now on. But everything else, we're just, sometimes we don't like what we do and we don't necessarily standardize it and we iterate. But that's where we're at right now. So
we are making up the best practices.
We are making up the best practices. So, questions? Yeah, okay.
I was totally going to.
We had a bet going.
That Chris probably wants to say right now.
So, no, I think yeah.
I said he was going to do this. He's going to do it.
Well, okay. Chris.
This is a request.
I didn't have that.
We didn't have that. We were going where this is more of a comment than a question. But this is a request as a new one. What do you got?
Can we get a button to not install content?
Can we get a button to not install demo content, you mean?
Yeah. I'm like, great, I want to install your recipe. I don't want your content because I'm going to do something with it, and I don't want to delete the first thing.
Fair bet. You have a mic.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry.
Please.
Honestly, we could put that kind of thing in recipe installer kit, but it would just delete all the content that the recipes had created. The idea that we can make, that we're going to change it so that sometimes you get the content from recipes and sometimes you don't, I don't want to say never, but probably not.
But and there would be a way where you'd have a content type recipe and then a demo content recipe for that content type.
Right.
And you could opt into choosing. So
right.
So wait.
Yeah. You could do that.
So
that's
what,
not a button.
What that means for everyone listening to the recording who can't hear Pam is you can have a content type recipe and then a demo for that content type recipe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the UX of that is obviously something we'd love to do. It's just not super easy right now, and also would double the number of repos that we would have.
Yeah. So
which I don't like.
Lots of UX and maintenance implications therein lie. Okay, Martin, you were right there, yeah?
I'm going to start actually by making a comment on that previous thread. The OpenY distribution actually has a way to install and then uninstall demo content. So
The OpenY, like as in YMCA? Yeah, the OpenY distribution has a way to uninstall and then install and then uninstall demo content.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
That might be a pattern too.
So we just, yeah.
That might be useful also as like site templates evolve, and if they have a big package of default content, or demo content I should say, then it would be pretty convenient to have a button after the fact that say, okay, just wipe out the demo content, let me start from clean. So like that may yet happen in some form. I don't know if it will happen as part of recipes specifically though.
Yeah. And then you have your own question.
Okay, so my own question is about the whole mono repo approach.
Yes.
Is there, I mean, I would love to understand, based on your months of now using that pattern, what are the pros and cons? What challenges did that create? How did that save you time? Like all of that. Maybe too long for this forum, but at some point would love to better understand.
So Martin was asking about elaborating more on the mono repo and the pros and cons we've had and anything we've learned over that. And I will say that the nice thing is that we didn't really, it's not a new concept. Drupal.org didn't really have to do anything special to allow us to do it. You could already make a project and then turn off its issue queue. So we could do that for all of the ones that are being pushed as subtree splits in order to funnel everyone back towards the main development repo. And that, I mean, just being able to have all the entire single issue queue was beneficial for us. Now, maybe not all for all the track leads, so to like sift through the hundreds of other issues, but it kept us sane. So I consider that a plus.
Yeah.
And then all the Git actual physical committing stuff was a huge plus. The only thing it doesn't solve is when you have to tag a release, you have to tag a release on every single subtree split. And that's still manual work, but that's not caused by the monorepo. You would still have that problem if you maintain 26 individual repos anyway. So it doesn't solve every problem, but it streamlines a lot of things.
Yeah, no, the tagging or the release tagging thing, the fact that I have to literally go and like tag 26 freaking releases, and it's just the most boring thing ever, is that D.O doesn't support like me being able to do that programmatically. They hopefully will in the near future, but they don't right now. Nothing to do with the subtree split. I honestly don't see any downsides to it. I really like it.
Other than just initial confusion for some people, but like it's easily explained by docs and whatnot. So, okay. Well, the next question. Yes, Chris. Oh, sorry, other Chris, the one who raised his hand.
This is essentially a question about recipes, and if I were to ask it the shortest possible way, do you anticipate that we'll ever be able to ask Drupal to export its understanding of features and modules that it has as a recipe to have this mechanism?
So the question was about asking Drupal to sort of generate a recipe given the existing state of a site. So like features export, but like not for config management, and also generating a recipe instead of a feature.
No, just generate the recipe.
Right,
No config.
right, without doing the config management aspect. Yes, okay, maybe. Do you want to write it?
Can we grab features?
Actually, guest star Jim Birch. No, the recipes initially is he gonna say yes, no, maybe?
Well, we actually have this on our roadmap.
Do you want to come up here and say that real quick?
We have it on our roadmap.
He has it on his roadmap.
Yeah.
So phase 3, maybe when the recipes APIs aren't experimental, maybe when config actions are a little bit more stable and complete. But right now we want you to learn how to manually create recipes, really understand them so you can make the best recipe possible.
So,
I love that so much. I'm
so
gonna start
to
using
summarize the answer, to instill a salt of the earth working ethic, you are being asked to write your recipes from scratch.
that. Yeah.
But phase 3, maybe.
Kids will have it easy
Yeah, they walked uphill both ways. All right, next question. Jacob.
If you're building, I was going to say not a distribution anymore, is it better to extend Drupal CMS or copy it?
So the question was whether you should extend Drupal CMS or copy it. And I would say don't extend it because you can't really.
Use its parts.
You could require any of those individual recipes just like we required some from core and some from other contrib modules. Yeah, it's compose it with Composer.
Yeah, use the parts, absolutely.
And
We
use the
encourage
recipe
that.
installer kit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not subclasses.
There you go.
Traits, not subclasses.
The back.
So, Drupal CMS is install and forget, like inherit, modify. Will there ever be a distribution-like site template that updates itself as a product?
Will there ever be a distribution built on top or around site templates that can update itself, because recipes explicitly don't choose to do that? If you want to invent such a thing, you may regret it, but you could do that.
I actually have some info on this. Like there's some experimenting being done over in the Mad Science Lab about how to sort of how to do configuration updates, what you're asking basically, without it being a horrible shit show that it has traditionally been. That's about all I got. There's some mad science. Yeah.
Can we visit the mad scientist lab?
Well, right now there's nothing in the lab.
So-
I'm telling
so-
you, I
so-
just made a repo.
The actual answer is come to Contribution Day tomorrow
Yeah.
and look.
At your own risk.
Yeah. Matthew and okay, Chris.
So you mentioned sharing your recipes with the world.
Yes.
You also I've known like Drupal CMS provides like a media image or something, but then other people might have another idea what a media image should, like it should use max length or it should somehow
Sure.
use file delete. Do you see Drupal CMS as being a place where like the Drupal community starts to decide what we like with like a media entity, or do you want like 5, 6 different projects or a whole bunch of like media underscore image underscore my version?
So-
I really
so-
don't like the sound of that.
Okay, I think you kind of sold not doing that in your question, but no, the answer I would say 100%. So Drupal CMS is not just about delivering new kinds of code; it's about a new contribution model and new collaboration model. And we want Drupal CMS to be best practice. We're trying to codify best practices in every way, and so we absolutely want you to roll into the issue queue and say, hey, have you heard of this thing? Because we have so many cool things that we didn't know about, and even the track leads didn't know about, and now we have a better solution for everybody. We definitely don't want bifurcation. We're trying to consolidate a little bit at least. Chris, and then
So a couple things. You're talking about uninstalling
install profile self-uninstalling. Yeah.
well, not the install profile, but the
Oh, the recipe unpacking and then
Yeah, are
uninstalling.
you thinking like that's just going to happen eventually always, or like could we keep that around so we know what we installed?
You may choose to. So the question was whether or not the recipe unpacking uninstalling is
It's going to be optional.
is required or not.
Like
The
a
answer is it's
same
optional.
A nice default, but it would be optional. It's being implemented as a Composer plugin, so if you wanted to keep the recipes around, you could just turn off the plugin.
Right, in the same way, like Composer patches, like you don't
Yeah.
need to do that. Yeah. So that's exactly the same way, and I was inspired by that. So,
So the other thing that
follow
I
up.
just point out real quick.
Here's the comment. I win.
You owe me $1. You win. Anyway.
The install profile is weight 1000 by default. It's there so that it gets to override everything everybody else is doing. Uninstalling it as a default practice, sure, if we're talking standard or minimal, but like there's a really good use case for it existing. Otherwise, you just have to invent a miscellaneous module with a really high weight to take over that. And the profile is a module, so.
Right. So the comment was about how install profiles are just really, really special modules that have a default weight that makes them run before everything else. And if we, after, yeah, weight, not priority. And it makes it, so yeah, like if we say never have an install profile ever again, then you just have to write a bunch of weird modules with a hook module implements alter or whatever. And yeah, I mean, if you can come up with a reason to have, really, really specialized code that must be runtime post-install, I I feel like it should be in a module, and you should choose to have it be running after. But that is a philosophical debate we should have tomorrow, because you can talk us out of it. Because as I said, this is a kind of our gut instinct / things we're trying to codify, and if there's a good reason not to do it, then
That's my worry,
yeah.
is the codification.
But the other thing is, once again, we're not gonna remove the ability for install profiles to stay installed.
Yeah.
We just want the best practice for people who don't need them to have them be uninstalled, so they don't, accidentally, whatever.
Most of the time, you don't need, like in most cases, you probably don't need the install profile to stick around and be installed, but not all the time.
So this is maybe a newbie question, and there's a follow-up one after this.
Great.
Which is recipes. Are they more Drupal core track, or are they Drupal CMS track?
Can you clarify before I
Yeah.
restate?
In what
Because I don't
sense?
know what that means.
Yeah. So recipes, are they? This is going to be a part of Drupal core going forward, or is this more like along through the lens and the initiatives
Gotcha.
of Drupal CMS?
So recipes are in core, and it's actually the only part of core we've had to even touch when working on Drupal CMS was getting changes into the recipe system.
Not entirely true. But
Well, okay. The one I had to deal with. He's had to deal with everything. I've had to deal with a smaller percentage. But the recipes code in core is what we're doing everything on. We're not patching it. We're not working around it. Everything we need in it is in core. And, there's more functionality to come, but yeah, we're not doing anything special. Now, site templates don't exist yet, so couldn't answer that question. And it will probably be, Drupal CMS is effectively the first site template, and we're gonna figure out together what that means. So does that answer your question? And did you still have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess I just have this concern that, basically, if recipes or even site templates are more tied to the horse of Drupal CMS, then what happens to all the people who want to be able to use those in Drupal core going forward, in the sense of Drupal versus headless Drupal kind of approach or something?
Yeah, I don't.
recipe. It sounds.
How to summarize
You
it
can
first?
use. There's not. It's not so much that you're by using Drupal CMS, you're not really tying yourself to the horse of Drupal CMS. That's the point of recipes not being something that stick around. You are using Drupal CMS's recipes, maybe some of them, all of them, any number of them, to just get your site into a particular state. You could also do it by clicking around manually. That doesn't tie you to Drupal. You could start with Drupal core, and you could install all the same modules and do all the same configuration changes and make it into Drupal CMS.
Yeah.
It's just a lot faster to do it,
There's
our way.
nothing other than literally the customization of the installer. There's nothing special. It's literally everything else would be clickable. So yeah, back there, and then we'll come over here.
All right, I have a question. Do you have a vision of from everything that is site template, what is going to be proprietary code? What is the custom code you will sell?
Not touching this.
So the question was, before we answer it, the question was, do we have an idea of which parts of a site template would be proprietary, which will be GPL, which ones you can sell, which ones you can monetize, etc.? The answer is no. We don't. If you were in the mega BOF or whatever it was, at 1:30 today, we have no idea. We're figuring it out. It's a part of that is a legal question. The DA's, talking to the legal counsel about it and stuff. We're going to make as much of it free as possible, but there has to be something that's sellable. But all the modules will be open source, and recipe is just a bunch of YAML. So yeah, follow up.
Unless the profile, which is a module, a part of site template, you could use it to upload all the features and proprietary things. In that case,
Install profiles. You're positing that install profiles could have the proprietary things in them. They're modules. They are considered by core a module, and therefore are equally GPL required. So you can't use that to get around it, or someone else couldn't, not you. Themes are also GPL because, the template preprocess is Drupal. That's GPL. Assets you include, no, not GPL. I don't know what they are. Don't ask me, but they're not GPL.
Also,
just
we're
by
not
default.
lawyers.
We
I
are
feel like I
not-
need to say that.
Not lawyers. Wait, you, yes.
Are recipes going to get a new content type other than just general project? Is there going to be a better way for discovery, a view that's got recipes, you've got themes and you've got modules?
So the question was about discoverability on Drupal.org. Will there ever be a different content type other than general project? And as of now, no. But that does not mean we won't be able to do listings and whatnot. Now, whether or not it's, because everything is mirrored to packagist anyway, there is an uncommitted issue to project browser to be able to just list all the recipes that are available on packagist, and then you can use them just normally. Didn't get committed yet because it shows them in either alphabetical or random order because we have no metrics.
Yeah.
So there's no way to sort them. And so until we sort of get that, and also then figure out how to gather data, like there's a lot of literally meta information to figure out first, but it's impossible. It's already possible to do. So building those listings is important. I don't think we need a new content type on Drupal.org. That's an IA thing, you know. And Drupal.org is slowly being upgraded to, you know, very intentionally being upgraded to new versions of Drupal, and you know, we don't want to slow them down. So we're good for now, but we'll all have to work together to figure it out.
So as we're creating these new recipes, we're doing them as general projects to go and get those namespaces.
So they are general projects, but in the composer JSON, the type is Drupal-recipe.
Drupal
right?
recipe, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what differentiates them. We can introspect that if we need to. We can make a listing of just ones that do that. Like we can figure it out. There might be a new best practice eventually. I don't know. Right now, there's a handbook page that is manually maintained to list as many recipes as possible. Thank you, Jim. The cookbook, yes, very cute name. And it's a lot of work, and it's not. It's valuable.
It's not sustainable, you know.
Right, it's not, and that's fine. But we're just trying to hold back, the tides before we have all the things. So, Jacob,
Gabor.
and then Gabor, and then Jacob.
Gabor's been waiting for
I have
minutes.
a question for the Math Science Lab.
Okay.
So one extreme end of distributions is desktop apps without continued distribution that we didn't talk about, but I think it's fun. And I talked to a lot of people, and some people said that what if there would be a desktop app that runs Tome, and I can generate my static site from my local Drupal that I don't need to run Tome anywhere. There was another person that said Drupal is a great AI orchestrator engine that I can put these AI workflows together. So what if there's a desktop app that runs Drupal with recipes to have these AI automators, and then I can just run that and do like crazy things with AI and have basically a custom app for these AI workflows. So what do you think about that?
Summarizing that, Gabor
I think that sounds like some mad science
is
stuff.
seeding a bunch of good ideas for contribution day tomorrow, and/or like trying to bring Sam Mortensen back. And I'm not going to. There was too many ideas, but there's some really interesting ideas about things we could do with AI and the desktop app and whatever. And yeah, come by tomorrow. And Adam is very good at mad science. Let me tell you, because that launcher thing we saw, he did it, and like he asked me, he's like, "Is this a good idea?" And then before I answered, he did
after
it.
Christmas break, I was like, I did it.
He's like, "By the way, I accidentally did it." So yeah,
It sucks, but I did it.
There's some
It's
mad
good now.
science. Jacob.
Just
And
to
then-
clarify on the proprietary part, the work that you guys are doing has nothing to do.
The work that we have done so far has nothing to do with anything proprietary. We haven't even just started talking about what might be in the future, and there's a lot of work to be done before Adam and I, do anything. I'm like sitting on my hands trying not to jump to implementation of site templates because we haven't finished defining them yet. So yeah, nothing done so far as anything other than GPL. So did you have a question up here? No? Sorry. Any other hands? We have 90 seconds. Any 90-second long question and answer?
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does Core have any recipes?
Does Core have what recipes?
Recipes?
You know the answer to
Core.
that.
Core does. I mentioned earlier during the talk that Drupal CMS specifically uses a recipe that is written in Core.
I think it uses a few, actually.
At least one, yeah. And it does. And it also uses ones from Contrib. Not all of the ones we use have a Drupal CMS namespace. But all the ones with the Drupal CMS namespace should be written by us. So, and the one other thing we didn't talk about at all was with regard to default content. The Drupal core has a default content importer, but the exporter is still in Contrib. So if you're confused about that, go to the default _ content module. There's a drush command. You can use that to generate your own default content, but the importer is part of Drupal core's API.
What's up?
Is there any content we should buyer beware of on that?
Which content you should be aware of?
Yeah, like we make content, we wish to export content, buyer beware because our content is, say, layout builder or something.
There's a patch for Layout Builder for default content to export it.
Right.
So,
So maybe.
There were some things.
I'm sure there's edge cases and bugs to be found and filed and fixed. So.
Having said that, for the most part, I found it works surprisingly really well. Well, not surprisingly. It was written by smart people, but like it works really well.
All code has bugs.
Yes.
It's fine. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for the questions. Great.